Hey folks, how you doing out there? Welcome to another Drink and a Wink. It's been a little bit since I've been on the video here, so I thought I'd come at you today. Nice Sunday afternoon, early evening. We were going to try to get outside here. This is a rare day off for me, and of course, weather never complied with those ideas. So I got my Sunday shirt on. I don't know what that means. Sunday spring shirt, all that good stuff. And I thought we would talk a little bit about something that was kind of brought up to me recently. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about a few Illinois distilleries. We're going to talk about Blaum Brothers and Whiskey Acres. Okay? Now, I know I've made no bones about it. I've talked about Whiskey Acres many times now in the recent past. We've had quite a few of their different types of spirits. We own currently one from each of their core range. We have the bottle and bond bourbon, and we also have the straight rye. We've had them all. We've had their entire core range, and then we've also ventured out and we bought the Bloody Butcher, which is kind of, they use a kind of a, I don't know the exact terminology, but a special corn for that they grow, and enjoyed that one. That's a great one. And then this recently we got their Artisan Series maple syrup. Whoops, it didn't break. That was a Whiskey Acre shot glass. It didn't break. So even their shot glasses are good. This Whiskey Acres bourbon whiskey finished in a maple syrup cask. We've liked all of these, but when we come back to Whiskey Acres, the bottled and bond bourbon is a standout, and both of their ryes are a standout. And really, for them being such a bourbon company, or kind of starting with that and then getting into rye later, the ryes are a real standout for me. So anyway, I was kind of, after my last post, a good friend of mine, a good friend of the band Cast Iron Skillet, and just all around good guy, good drummer, Brian Wynn, had kind of a Facebook message me and said, "Hey man, Whiskey Acres," kind of like I was like, so he had some other suggestions for other distilleries in Illinois. I'm never one to kind of get too competitive about anything, but I was like, oh, you know what? I do. One of them he mentioned was Blaum Brothers. Now, Blaum Brothers is also an Illinois distillery. They're from Galena, Illinois, whereas Whiskey Acres is from DeKalb. So I told him the differences and the reasons why I really like the Whiskey Acres lineup, and also told him that I have had the Blaum and I like that as well. So I figured what would be better than to take some kind of correlating products between the two and just have a little taste off. I'm not going to rate them in any way, shape, or form, or give them a grade. I will tell you what I like about them, or what maybe I don't like so much, or maybe what you like. I'll tell you, maybe if you like this, then you might like this one, or something like that. All right. So as he was discussing, we were talking about a couple of other places, but the Blaum Brothers came back, and I remember that I had a bottle of this. This one was actually given to me by Damien Espinoza, and we've had this bottle. So this will be a nice little kind of comparison. This is Blaum Brothers straight bourbon whiskey, bottled at 50%. It is not bottled in bond, but it is at 50%. This is Whiskey Acres bottled in bond. I don't have your straight bourbon right now, but that would be a little bit obviously also younger and at a lower proof. So I figured, even though this is bottled in bond, which if you don't know what that means, it's all the same bourbon regulations, except that it has to be stored in a bonded warehouse, and then also has to be from the same distiller and in the same distillery season. And the distillery seasons go January 1st to the end of June, and then July 1st to the end of the year. So that's what bottled and bond is. So it's as fair a comparison as I can make. They're both bottled at 50%. I've had the Blaum Brothers bottle a little longer. I've had this I think this has been around now about a year and a half or so. This one maybe a year. So we're a little bit, but they're close. You can see we're kind of, same heights as fill level. Like I said, good comparison. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about each distillery. I know I've talked about Whiskey Acres, but in comparison, I'll start with them because the hat's right there. So Whiskey Acres, it's unique. Again, the reason why I get so fascinated with all this stuff is just to see how each player. I was thinking I was liking it to music, and that's why I said player. But each company is different, and they're coming from a different, kind of trend, different kind of vibe. Even the kind of what they choose to put forward in marketing terms is a little different. So Whiskey Acres, I'll talk about them just one more time. So Whiskey Acres is one of the few, I think it was the second established estate distillery in the United States. First one in Illinois. And also the other thing, these both kind of came on board at exactly the same time, around 2013, 2014. So they're both relatively young. Whiskey Acres is what they call a seed to spirit organization. They grow everything there, and the only thing that's not happening at that distillery, including the water, is the cooperage. And the cooperage is very close by, and they get barrels from that cooperage. But every grain that they put in there is grown right there at the farm. Okay, so for instance, their rye that they're using. It turns out that the rye is grown in Illinois typically is not used for harvest all that much because it grows very, very, very high. And then a lot of times the weather conditions in the early spring or mid-spring, I guess we should say, wipe that out and knock it out, and they use it for feed or just turning it over. I don't know anything about rye. So they actually import rye seeds from Canada to make the rye that goes into their bourbons and, more importantly, their rye. Gives it a very interesting characteristic. They're all about the farm, and even in their spirits, they're very what we might call grain forward. They're very proud of the grains they're putting in there. They put a lot of research into it, and I think that's why I like it so much, because you really see it that they're so. But they're all kind of looking. They all kind of have a modern farmer kind of approach, which is kind of cool. It's nice to see, and and the three proprietors. I think there's brothers, and then there's a third gentleman who I have actually talked to a little bit. They're all farmers. The farm is actually like a fifth generation farm, and then the third person in this three-headed this troika of Whiskey Acres founders is also comes from farms. So they're all about farm stuff, really cool stuff. Okay, we've been there a number of times. That's it. Blaum Brothers, I obviously don't know as much about, other than they're in Galena, but I did do a little bit of research. Again, they came on board at the same time. Blaum Brothers are what you just said, or what I just said, two brothers, Mike Blaum and Matt Blaum. They have a little bit of a different twist. They're just putting out a really nice craft product. They're really doing their best to kind of put out something that they're not just getting something out to get out. Meaning that they're bottling their core range bourbon at 50%. That's really cool. They also are making a point, and I like this. The straight bourbon whiskey. This straight bourbon whiskey is non-chill filtered because we're not monsters. I went to their website and did some reading about some of the stuff they're doing, and they have a very unique kind of way. They're kind of going the more lots of research, a lot of work, really hard work. But there's a quote out there that says, with no, what is it? No, it's kind of a funny way they put it. Lots of research, and I think it was like they didn't study the craft, and no hipster vests or something of that nature. Pretty funny stuff. They have kind of an somewhat ironic and a little bit of a kind of a it's kind of fun what they're doing there. Good stuff. The bottle is nice in terms of just kind of presentation. Interesting stuff. I guess it has they have a kind of an Illinois kind of quirkiness to them. Maybe I have that too, although I couldn't get it out, and I'm having trouble getting this bottle back on the. As you can see here, Drinking a Wink is upgraded now. I'm using. I used to use oatmeal. Now I'm using sliced peach cans as my risers to get the bottles up into view here as I talk about them. All right. The other thing to keep in mind is Blaum brothers. The one thing about them, just as they came online, they both. I don't mean online in the internet sense. I mean online is when they started going from. Anytime you're doing something in the whiskey world, you have to produce and distill, and then you have to wait a long time to age. Uh, Blaum brothers went one direction where they were actually sourcing their whiskey for now from MGP, and that's why they called it the Knotter, Knottr for not there. Bourbon. So that was around for a little bit, but now that has been discontinued, and they're fully doing everything from produced and or distilled and produced. One thing I'll always check if you're unsure about that stuff, and kind of look for the bottle, and see if they will give you some kind of statement that will tell you. This is a Fred Middick tip, but distilled and bottled by Blaum Brothers Distilling Company, Galena, Illinois. So they have the state there listed in there, and that makes then if you are for sure that when it says produced and the important part distilled, that you're getting a product that is not sourced. Okay, this label has worn off a little bit, but it says the same thing over here: grown, distilled, and bottled, Whiskey Acres, Illinois. So it's a good thing to check when you're looking at your whiskey. If you look at a source whiskey and there's nothing wrong with that, but you just want to make sure that you know what you're getting, it's been my target. If you picked up the Jepson bourbon and some other brands of bourbons, you will look, and if it says anything, and it says only produced but distilled in Indiana, then you know that they're sourcing it from this company called MGP, and they source lots of stuff, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. I do like to see the state that it's distilled. It's kind of like bourbon nerdiness. All right, let's get to some drinking, all right? Last thing I want to say, this is no less than 4 years old, and then the bottle and bond here is 5 to 6. So again, we're getting similar aging. As you can see here, the color is almost exactly the same. Maybe the Whiskey Acres is just a little bit darker, but if I kind of flip-flop these glasses right now, I don't think I'd be able to tell. So look through the top. Yeah, this one has just a little bit more. It was almost like as if this has a little bit more of like chili powder. I mean, they didn't do this, but chili powder or cinnamon was blended in there a little bit. It just has a little bit of more reddish tint. Okay. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the Blaum Brothers first because I've had the Whiskey Acres so much more in recent times. So I kind of have I have an idea of their profile. On the Blaum Brothers, okay, let me do that again. On the nose, I get a lot of breakfast spices, very typical bourbon spices. Nothing out of the ordinary. A little bit of earthiness that I didn't get the first time. And I tried these last night, but I didn't really get the palate quite clean enough before that. Today I did very much. Little tip, if you are a cheese eater, and let's see, who among us is not a cheese eater? This might sound gross, but a little dollop of ricotta cheese. I know that sounds gross, but a little dollop ricotta cheese, and then water really takes away a whole lot of what was in your mouth beforehand. And let's say, face it, when we use ricotta cheese, we really just want to dollop it on a spoon and suck it down, right? Who needs food? All right, let me do that again. So yeah, breakfast spices, cinnamon, a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of earthy and mustiness, but nothing too major. A little bit of cask. Good spice. Nice spice. Let me tell you one thing about this. I didn't tell you the mash bill. The mash bill on this is 72% corn, 23 I had to do the math twice. 23% malted barley. Nope, sorry. 72% corn, 23% rye, and 5% malted barley. That's a very low amount of malted barley in there. They do that to kind of create some sweetness, and the enzyme reaction is a little different. Yes, it's the same malted barley that you would use in Scotch, single malt Scotch. And then because it's very typical um, of let's say corn in the 70s and then rye in the 20s or close to that level, um, it has a lot of spiciness in there. Okay. Now the whiskey acres is for all intents and purposes. No, it's not all. It's what we call a wheated bourbon. Okay. They're using some what is it, warm red winter wheat or something like that as their second grain here. The mash bill on this is 75% corn, 15% wheat, okay, and then 10% malted barley. I was just listening to another interview today, and one of the founders' main goals with their bourbon was they were not trying to hit it and make it overly spicy, so that's why they used wheat. Other famous wheated bourbons would be Weller, both this one and that one. I can't reach it, but Maker's Mark. And then, of course, Pappy Van Winkle. And, excuse me, Old Fitzgerald? I can't remember. Anyway, wheated bourbon. Very good. I have an old elk wheated bourbon. It's a different profile for me. What's dangerous with wheated bourbons is that it takes away some of the spices. And I am not a big fan of really super sweet bourbon. So that's why, for me, like for instance, I'm not a fan of larceny, and I won't pick on it anymore. But I'm just not a fan of it because it's very very big on the sweet thing. Maybe the same with. Michelle, what was the bourbon you were just talking about? Not larceny, but like in that same ballpark. It's everywhere. Anyway, so on this nose, where this was a lot of the kind of spices that you would get from cask and maybe some of the rye, this is all grain, meaning I get a lot of corn. This really smells like, I gotta say, like this is kind of like you're sniffing a tiramisu or not that sweet, maybe like some kind of brandy kind of cake, coffee cake, a little brandy or something like that. Okay, whereas this is very bready. Okay, I asked the founder once about the yeast stuff. He convinced me that it's not about the yeast for them. It's all about the grain. But something about this wheat, and then kind of a higher malted barley quotient here. So 75% corn, 15 wheat, 10 malt. It's a very different animal from this because it's a wheated bourbon. I'm just going to say this. The Whiskey Acres bourbon is not quite knocking me out as much as it used to. I've had a lot of Whiskey Acres stuff, and I got to say, really, I still get the most character out of the rye. I also know that they are not really going for character, they're going for different here. So this is very much a grain forward flavor. I'm not getting a lot of cask influence or cask spice. It's unabashedly corn heavy, corn forward. There's a little bit of a kind of a bitterness in there on the finish. Maybe that's where I get a little bit of the cask influence, or the barrel influence, I should say. A little bit of this, okay, but nowhere as much as I'm finding in the Blaum. Right, I'm going to be out of here in 3 minutes. for me, here's what I would say. If you are a more typical bourbon fan, okay, um, what's weird about this one, this Blaum Brothers, is that it tastes young, but it tastes young, but it's at 50%. It also has this kind of a little bit pale flavor, okay, and I would say, if anything, this is more. This gets a little bit more character and a little bit more interesting. At the finish, I'm getting a little bit of kind of oily, a little bit more of the influence from the barrel. Whereas this one, I'm sorry, I should have some water. Let me reset that one. This one hits you right away. But in all of Whiskey Acres products that I get it, there's this little hint of this breadiness that I just really enjoy. So if you're really into more, I would say spicier bourbons, things that lean towards the all the old Granddad, the old Forester, the old Elk, maybe not Woodford. But in that area, or maybe I should say Knob Creek, that kind of thing. Maybe this one would be your pick. This one, Whiskey Acres, might be more for weeded fans, but it's just so unique, and I think that's why I kind of have leaned towards this. They just were having an approach that they were trying to make them a little different. I know a lot of reviewers have mentioned that. Like, this is an outstanding, and it might be the high malted barley of 10% in this mash bill. But this really leans more towards just a regular American whiskey. What I mean by that is, you can have an American whiskey that is all kinds of crazy mash bill, or it could be 30, 40, 30% malted barley and 30%, whatever you want. Koval has one of those, 4 grain. Very nice. That reminds me more of this than a bourbon. So if you drink bourbon and you're kind of like, this is just so sweet, and I'm kind of feeling one note, I would really say check out the Whiskey Acres. If you like your bourbons to be kind of that way and have kind of that little tingle and a little bit of pepperiness and a little spicier, okay, and think more spicy and less rich, then maybe go with this. It's kind of like the way I think of like any kind, let's think like hot sauces. You know what I mean? There's ones that has like a richer tomato flavor, or maybe that's what pasta sauce. There will be more that will have like richer tomato flavors, and really getting into the vegetables that are used. With a little bit of a combination of also some oil and this kind of thing, like a richer kind of feel. That's what this kind of feels like to me. More viscous, heavier mouthfeel. Then there will be ones that'll be a little more runnier, but you're adding more of the spices in there, oregano and pepper and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of what this is, okay? So that's what I love about this. So I'm not going to give you any choice. But here's one thing. For people that are in Illinois, both of these you can find at major retailers, including Binny's. Of course, both places have visitor centers. They're both open. We've been to this one many times. Who knows, maybe next time we finally get sick of beating ourselves up in Starved Rock as we drive over to DeKalb before we go there, maybe we'll go to Galena for a change and go to see what they have to offer. So check that out. If you're not here in Illinois and you are interested in this, because you've heard me talk about Whiskey Acres, here's a little bit of a problem. Both companies right now are suffering under this issue and lobbying against this issue, so to speak, with petitions and things. That they cannot sell or ship spirits from Illinois. Okay, it's a weird law. You can do it if you're a winemaker, but not spirits. Kind of confusing. Every state has different kinds of regulations, stuff like that. So if you're stuck and you can't get here, They have limited distribution in other states, some in Nebraska. I don't know if they're in Michigan. I don't know. But all the different companies, you can do that research by looking online. But what I will tell you is that I know Whiskey Acres and Blaum Brothers are now on this thing called Seal Box, which sounds like I'm saying the word seal box. Like, hey man, seal that box. Totally not. It's the worst spelling for a website I've ever heard. I don't care if it's the person's name. Sealbox is Seelbach, like Johann Sebastian Bach. Okay, there you go. Sealbox. I don't know why I had to bring Bach into this. Seelbach, and they're online shipping that they've partnered with them, and you could order depending on what state there is. There's about 20 states. You go on the website, and it's going to ask if they can use your location, and if they can ship to you, you can proceed, and if not, they're going to tell you you can't ship to your state. So that's when you ship it to me, and then you come visit me. We'll have a drink, and there you go. All right? Or maybe I'll just pick it up for you. Whatever. That's it. I want to thank for kind of a couple ideas I have here is if we can get hold of, Michelle is the rye person in the family. I'm growing to be more and more impressed with every rye that I have. Got a couple here that Michelle got for her birthday that we're going to talk about. These two, Town Branch and Wilderness Trail, are phenomenal. But anyway, I'm going to kind of continue on this Illinois theme. It would be nice to kind of do a comparison of a couple of Illinois distillers. Now, Michelle has owned Koval rye in the past, so maybe if I can find it's not our favorite, but it's not the worst. We got a lot of rye right now, and we're kind of on a down purchase. So maybe if I see a half bottle on sale somewhere, I'll buy that, and what we'll do is maybe do what do you think about that, Michelle? Doing a Koval rye versus Whiskey Acres rye in the future? Okay, so look forward to that. We might do that as a plug for a gig coming up, and or we're also going to maybe talk about a little bit about mezcals as well. So there you go. Yeah, we're going to break away from the whiskey and talk a little bit about mezcal. You can see it just peeking out of the corner, a little green bottle over there with a little straw and ribbons up there. It was Del Maguey. I don't even forget which one it is. It is phenomenal. Anyway. That's it. Finally, I want to thank the person who kind of motivated me to do this tonight. Brian Winnie, man. He's not just agent provocateur to make me come up with ideas for battles between Whiskey Acres and Blaum. And I'm just going to say, for me, I think Whiskey Acres won. But that's only me. It's up to you. Put my head on. But not only is he, as I said, an agent provocateur, I like that phrase so much. It was so nice I used it twice. He's also a proprietor with a couple of friends of one of the best breweries that I've ever been at, Ogle County Brewery. So if you're heading west in Illinois and you're going through Oregon way, check out Ogle County Brewery. We've been there once when the Cast Iron Skillet Rock Band played there, and I'll tell you what, we had a grand old time. The beers are phenomenal, the food is great, and I know it on deep background here that if for some reason you would get sick of their beers, and I don't know how you could, they got a nice selection of whiskey and scotch there too. So check it out again, Ogle County Brewery. It's 400 West Washington Street, Oregon, Illinois, and check them out. You can check them out on Facebook. You can check them out online. They both have a website. Imagine it. They have a website and a Facebook page. I don't know why I said that. It was like a revelation to me. But anyway, check them out. I would look forward to visiting them soon, whether we're playing out there. They have music out there all the time, too. Real cool place. Real cool place to hang, and I want to go out there. So I've given you 3 destination points in kind of northwest Illinois. Go to DeKalb, Illinois, and hit up Whiskey Acres. Then maybe drive out to. You know what? You can do this in one shot. Then you go out to Oregon, get a couple of beers. If it's Oregon, and I'm saying Oregon like a city slicker, I apologize. But anyway, get out there, grab yourself a couple of beers, some food, listen to some music, and then head out to Galena and do whatever they do in Galena, which I guess we're gonna find out. Anyway, there you go. All right, folks, I'm done and dusted. What do they do in Galena? Oh, wait. What's that guy's name? We saw that show about Galena. Oh, you're not listening to me anymore. Oh, well. I guess I'll have to find out what they do in Galena on my own. Jeez. All right.